Wellness Rhythm Show. Find your rhythm. Live your wellness.
Y'all, quick question. When is the last time you were actually outside? Not walking to your car, not waiting for a coffee order. I mean, genuinely, intentionally outside.
Right, and here is a stat that stopped me cold. A 2001 study from the Environmental Protection Agency found that Americans spend roughly 90% of their time indoors. 90. That number has almost certainly gone up since then.
90%, that is wild. And somehow we are all surprised that we feel depleted.
Today, we are digging into what the research actually says about time in nature, the hard science, the practical implications, and honestly, whether a park counts. Spoiler, it does.
So let's start at the beginning. When researchers say nature exposure, what are they even measuring? Because I feel like that could mean a forest hike or a sad potted plant in a waiting room.
Fair question. The research actually spans quite a range. Studies measure everything from forest immersion to views of green space from a window. The effects are not equal, but they are measurable at multiple levels.
That is genuinely surprising. A window view counts?
Roger Ulrich's landmark 1984 study published in Science found that post-surgical patients who had a window view of trees recovered faster and needed fewer pain medications than those looking at a brick wall. A window view. That changed how hospitals started thinking about design.
Okay, I was not expecting a surgery ward to be our entry point, but here we are.
It gets more specific from there. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, which translates roughly as forest bathing, has been studied extensively. Researchers like Dr. Ching Li at the Nippon Medical School have documented measurable drops in cortisol, blood pressure, and heart rate after forest walks versus urban walks of the same duration and intensity.
Same duration, same effort, different environment. That is a clean comparison.
Exactly. It removes the exercise variable. The environment itself is doing something.
Here is the thing, though. What is it doing mechanically? Because I want to understand the why, not just the what.
A few mechanisms. First, phytoncides. These are antimicrobial compounds trees release, and Dr. Lee's research found they increase natural killer cell activity, immune cells that target viruses, and abnormal cells. You are literally breathing something that upregulates your immune function.
So the forest is medicating you without your consent and in the best possible way.
Broadly, yes. Second mechanism is attentional restoration. Psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan at the University of Michigan developed attention restoration theory. The idea that natural environments engage what they call soft fascination, which allows your directed attention, the exhausted focus you use for work and decisions, to actually recover.
Oh, that lands. That is why you come back from even a short walk outside and feel like your brain rebooted.
Third mechanism is more sensory. The sights, sounds, and smells of natural environments appear to dampen activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. A 2019 study in PNAS from researchers at Stanford found that a 90-minute walk in nature reduced rumination and neural activity in the subgenual prefrontal cortex compared to an urban walk.
Rumination reduction. That alone would sell tickets.
And it should. Chronic rumination is a significant predictor of depression. This is not soft wellness talk. This is neuroscience.
Okay, so I have to be honest here. I do the morning light thing. I step outside for about 5 minutes before coffee, and I notice a difference. But I am also not hiking through a forest. My version of nature is my front yard in Austin in the heat.
Right. And here's where I want to push back gently on the all-or-nothing framing. The dose matters, but the research is genuinely more forgiving than people expect. A 2019 study in Scientific Reports by Dr. Matthew White at the European Centre for Environment and Human Health found that spending at least 120 minutes per week in nature was associated with significantly higher well-being, but the distribution across the week was flexible.
Wait, 2 hours a week? That is 17 minutes a day.
Approximately, and it did not need to be contiguous. Accumulated across the week in smaller chunks still produced the effect.
That is the kind of number that actually changes behavior, because 2 hours a week I can sell to myself.
You cannot sell it to yourself if you're sitting in a car. To be clear, passive exposure counts for less than active present engagement.
There is the David footnote.
Phones down is the subtext, yes.
Okay, y'all. If you are getting value from this conversation, please do take a second and like and subscribe to the Wellness Rhythm Show. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you this kind of evidence-based, real talk content. Now, let's talk about skepticism. Because I know someone is listening right now thinking, this sounds lovely, but I live in a city. I have a demanding job. My version of the outdoors is a parking lot.
That is a legitimate structural barrier, and I do not want to minimize it. but urban green space matters. Research from a 2016 study in the journal Landscape and Urban Planning found that visits to urban parks produced measurable short-term reductions in stress and improvements in mood, even in high-density cities. A park counts.
It really counts.
Street trees, community gardens, even rooftop green spaces show some benefit. The research on Japanese urban forest bathing has also been replicated in European city parks. You do not need wilderness access to get a meaningful dose.
Here is where we might actually disagree a little, though. I find that nature exposure for me only really works if I am not multitasking. I cannot be on a call while I am walking and get the same effect. But David, you work in finance in London. You're telling me you are walking in silence regularly?
Honestly, no, not always. I will admit my nature exposure is more structured than spontaneous. I specifically block a lunch walk a few times a week, and I have learned I need to treat it like a meeting or it does not happen.
Okay, that is actually more honest than I expected.
I'm full of surprises, but the research does support your instinct. A study published in the Journal of Environmental Psychology found that nature walks without phone use produced significantly greater attentional restoration than the same walk with phone use. The environment delivers the benefit, but divided attention blunts it.
This brings us to the sandwich generation piece, because I think about our listeners who are managing kids and aging parents simultaneously. These people are running on fumes. Where does nature fit in a life that full?
The research actually addresses this population specifically. A 2021 review in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health found that green space access was associated with lower burnout scores and better cognitive resilience in caregivers. The effect was stronger when the exposure was intentional rather than incidental.
Intentional, meaning you noticed you were outside.
Precisely, mindful presence amplifies the biological effect. Even brief intentional exposure outperforms longer but distracted time outdoors in several studies.
So you do not need 2 hours of forest bathing. You need 15 minutes of actually being where you are.
That is a reasonable summary, yes.
Right. I want to name something here too. For our listeners who are 50, 60, 65 plus, the cognitive resilience angle is not a minor benefit. Researchers at the University of Exeter found that older adults living within a kilometer of green space had better cognitive function over time. This is a long game investment in your brain.
And physical function too. Time outdoors correlates with higher physical activity levels, which we know from a decade of research supports bone density, cardiovascular health, and metabolic function in aging populations.
So stepping outside is not a luxury. It is infrastructure.
That is a phrase I'm going to use.
Okay, if you are walking away with one thing, literally walking away, preferably outside, let it be this. 120 minutes per week, 2 hours, broken up however you need. Leave the phone in your pocket. Notice where you are. That is it. That is the whole intervention.
The science is unusually consistent on this one. It is not a fad, it is not a trend. The evidence for nature exposure benefiting immune function, stress hormones, attention, and long-term cognitive health is robust across populations and methodologies. Getting outside is, as Emma put it, infrastructure.
Y'all, thank you so much for spending this time with us. Go take your 17 minutes. Open a window if that is all you have got. We will be here next week with more evidence-based, real-life wellness conversation that actually fits in your day. Take care of yourselves.
And do like and subscribe if you would. It costs nothing and it genuinely helps. See you next week.
This show is part of the VoxCrea.ai system. If you want a show like this for your organization without building it yourself,
go to voxcreo.ai and request a sample episode.